Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. I have a tutorial for you today on how to make a really easy top-down crochet sweater. This is arguably the easiest way to make a crochet sweater, and it is completely free of sewing. You do not have to attach any panels in this one because we work right from the collar and then work our way down. So it really is very simple, and I'm so excited to show you how to make this sweater for yourself. If you do find this tutorial to be at all helpful, or if you want to see more crochet content, then please consider subscribing to my channel. That way I can continue making more crochet videos for all of you. And without any further ado, here is the tutorial for this top-down crochet sweater. For this tutorial, I will be using weight 4 acrylic yarn in the color Forest, and this is from the brand I Love This Yarn, and I'll put up here on the screen as well as in the description how much yarn I did end up using for this project. And then I will also be using a 5mm crochet hook. So before beginning this project, I do highly recommend making a gauge swatch where I'm going to start by chaining 10, like so, and then I'm going to chain 2 to act as the turning chain, and then I'm going to go past those 2 chains that I just made, and into the 3rd chain here I'm going to insert my hook and then place a double crochet. And then I'm just going to complete 1 row of double crochet, so all the way down this chain 10 section, I'm just going to complete double crochet stitches. Like so. I am then going to chain 2 and turn my work, and then right into this first stitch here I'm going to insert my hook and place another double crochet, and then again I'm just going to work all the way down this entire row, placing a double crochet into every single stitch. And then we're going to do this one more time, so again chain 2, turn your work, and now we're going to do one last row here of double crochet, placing 1 into every single stitch across this little row. Now what we just made here is a gauge swatch because everyone's tension is a little bit different when they crochet, and then also sometimes there's difference in the yarn type. So I recommend making one of these, that way we can decide exactly how much you want to chain to have a perfect fitting sweater. So I made this little gauge swatch, that way I can then determine how wide 10 chains is for me. So here I'm going to go ahead and measure this piece, and I'm determining that 10 chains of double crochet is about 3 inches here for me. So now you're going to take your ruler and you're going to wrap it just right along your neck. So I'm going all the way from the back of my neck to the front, and I'm going to kind of figure out how wide I want the neckline to be. I am going to go with 18 inches because I like the size of this opening here. I think that's going to look really flattering for the sweater. So now I'm going to go ahead and figure out how many chains I need to make to get the 18-inch neckline here. So to do the math, I know that the gauge swatch is 3 inches long, but I want the neckline to be 18 inches. So I'm going to divide 18 by 3, and then I'm going to have 6. And then because the gauge swatch is 10 chains, I'm then going to multiply 6 by 10. So then my number is 60. And so that is the number that I'm going to be chaining for the neckline. And then you can do the same math to determine what number you are going to be starting with on the neckline of your sweater. The only thing is make sure that the number is divisible by 6. So you may need to alter it slightly, make it a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller to have a number that is divisible by 6. So my number is 60, which is perfect. That's very clearly divisible by 6. So now I'm going to go ahead and take out this gauge swatch, and we can get started on the actual project. So now I'm going to start by casting on by creating a little slip knot here, and then I'm going to chain the number that we just decided on for the neckline. So I'm going to be chaining 60, and then you can chain whatever number you decided, again making sure it is divisible by the number 6. So I've now created that chain of 60, and then I'm going to go ahead and chain 2 more to act as our turning chain, and then I'm going to skip past those 2 chains that I just made and insert my hook right into the 3rd chain there to place a double crochet. And now this entire first row is just all going to be double crochets, so into every single one of these chain stitches, just place 1 double crochet stitch. I have now completed that first row of double crochet. I placed 1 double crochet stitch into every single chain stitch across that entire chain that we just made. And now I do recommend that you just take a second and quickly count all these stitches again, just to make sure that it matches up perfectly with the number that you chained, because it's really important in the beginning of this project that we have the perfect stitch count. So I went through and I counted and made sure I still had 60 stitches across, which I do. And now we're going to go ahead and slip stitch. So I'm going to bring the end of this row here up to my hook, up to the front, so I'm making a little circle here. So I'm bringing these 2 sides together, making a perfect circle, and then I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook right into that very first double crochet that we made on the row. And I'm going to pick up some yarn, pull it through that stitch, and then also pull it through the loop on my hook, therefore creating a slip stitch. So we now brought this together and we now have one circle here for the neckline. And now would be a good time to ensure that you do like the way this fits. So just quickly slip this over your head, make sure it fits over your head, and then you're also comfortable with where it lands on your neck. So quickly try this on, make sure you like it, and then we can continue on to the next row. So once you have tried this on and then decide that you are indeed happy with it, we can then begin marking where we want the increases to take place on the sweater. So what you're going to do is take the number that you initially chained, so I chained 60, and then divide that by 6. So 60 divided by 6 is 10, and then whatever number you ended up with, whenever I say 10, just implement that with your own number. So I'm going to be working with 10, and I'm going to get my stitch markers ready. So starting from the seam here where we just slip stitched both ends of the row together, this is going to be the back of your sweater. So then we're going to start on this side, and I'm going to count 10 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And now into that 10th stitch there, I'm going to go ahead and place a stitch marker. And then again, you are just going to count for whatever number you have. So I counted 10, but if your number is like 9, you're going to count 9. So just use your own number whenever I say 10. So now, not counting the stitch marker, I'm going to start on the next stitch right after it. I'm going to count another 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So here on this 10th stitch, I'm then going to mark the stitch right after that one. So I found the 10th stitch, and I'm going to mark the 11th stitch, so the one right after it. I'm inserting my stitch marker and marking that stitch, like so. And then I'm going to go right back to the seam here, and now we're going to work the other way. So now starting on this side, I'm going to count another 10, starting from this first stitch here after this little seam. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And right into that 10th stitch, I'm going to place a stitch marker. So then starting in the stitch right after the stitch marker, I'm then going to count another 10. So starting in this stitch, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I'm going to mark the stitch right after that 10th stitch, so into the 11th stitch. I am then going to place my stitch marker right into that 11th stitch there, like so. And now we're going to count and make sure this is all lined up correctly. So the way this should work is in between the stitch markers on either side here, there should be 10 stitches or whatever number you had. So if you had 9 or 7 or whatever number, make sure that that number is in between these two stitch markers. So from here to here should be 10, and then also from here to here there should be 10 stitches. And then all the stitches on the long side, so the front and the back of the project, should also line up. So I should have 19 stitches on the back, 19 stitches on the front, and then 10 stitches on either side. Now that I have double and triple checked that all of the stitch markers are in the correct spots, we can now begin our first row here of working in a round. So you can either just chain 2 and then double crochet into the first stitch, or what I like to do here is a stacked single crochet, because I found this to look a lot neater when you're starting a new row. So I'm going to insert my hook right into this first stitch here, and then place a single crochet, and then I'm going to bring my hook right back down. I'm going to insert my hook right into the single crochet stitch that I just made, and then place another single crochet. So I'm then at the perfect height to make a double crochet, but again, if you don't want to do this, you can just chain 2 and double crochet into that first stitch. But now the first stitch here, I did 2 single crochets, so into the next stitch, I'm then going to do a double crochet. And then I'm going to double crochet all the way up until I reach that first stitch marker. So I'm just placing 1 double crochet into every single stitch until we reach the first stitch marker, like so. And now here in this first stitch marker, I'm going to remove the marker for now, and into this stitch, I'm going to place a double crochet, and then chain 1, and then into that exact same stitch, I'm going to place another double crochet, like so. And then I'm going to go ahead and remark this. So I'm placing the stitch marker right in between those 2 double crochets, right under that chain 1 that we made. And I'm going to just mark this spot here in our row. And then I'm going to continue like normal, double crocheting all the way up until I reach that next stitch marker, like so. And now again, in this stitch that we have marked, I'm going to remove the marker. And then into that stitch, I'm going to place a double crochet, chain 1, and then double crochet into that exact same stitch, like so. And then I'm going to remark that stitch, so I'm going to insert the stitch marker right under that single crochet in between the 2 double crochets we just made, and then mark that 1 stitch there, like so. And now I'm going to double crochet into every single stitch up until the next stitch marker. So 1 double crochet in all of these stitches. And then again in this next stitch here that we have marked, I'm going to remove the stitch marker, and then into that stitch I'm going to place a double crochet, chain 1, and then double crochet into the exact same stitch, like so. And then I'm going to remark that stitch by inserting the stitch marker right under that little chain 1 section. And now I'm going to double crochet up until I reach that last stitch marker of the row. So now right here in this last stitch marker, I'm going to go ahead and remove the marker, and then right into that stitch I'm going to place a double crochet, and then chain 1, and then double crochet again into that same exact stitch, like so. I'm then going to remark that section, and then going to double crochet all the way back until I reach the end of the row. And now here, after double crocheting into that last stitch there, I'm going to go ahead and insert my hook into the first single crochet there that I have of the row, or in some cases it might be a double crochet, depending on how you started the row. And I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch, like so. And then we're going to get started on the next row, so either chain 2 and double crochet, or I'm going to do another stacked single crochet. So right into this first stitch, I am placing a single crochet, and then I'm scooping my hook down and inserting it into the exact same single crochet that I just made, and placing another single crochet. And then going onward from that, I can then begin double crocheting up until I reach that very first stitch marker. So then here, where I have this little section marked, I'm going to remove that stitch marker, and now right into that chain 1 section in between those 2 double crochets, I'm going to insert my hook into that little section and place a double crochet, and then again I'm going to chain 1, and then into that exact same section I'm going to place another double crochet, like so. And now at this point I can easily tell as I'm working around where the increases take place, because it has that little extra section of the chain 1 there. So I'm not going to remark this just to save time, because I'm going to be able to find this again the next time I come around. But if you think it's going to be hard for you to see where the increase is going to take place, then just feel free to remark this section here by just marking that little chain 1 stitch as I showed you in the first row. And now we're going to go ahead and double crochet up until we reach the next stitch marker. So now here at the next stitch marker, I'm going to remove that marker, and then I'm going to place a double crochet right into that little chain 1 section that we just had marked, and then chain 1 and double crochet again into that same little section. And again, I am not going to remark this section because I can easily find it next time, but if you want to, you can just go ahead and remark that little chain 1 section. And now I'm going to go ahead and continue double crocheting. And now right here in this next section that we have marked, I'm going to remove that stitch marker, and then right into that chain 1 section I'm going to place a double crochet, and then chain 1, and then another double crochet, and then just continue double crocheting up to the next stitch marker. And do keep in mind that sometimes this little double crochet here gets kind of hidden, the first one after that increase, because sometimes this stitch that we just made will sort of slide over that double crochet. So just make sure you're paying attention and that you're placing your first double crochet into the first stitch here and not accidentally jumping over to the second one. So right into this first double crochet after the increase, I am placing a stitch, and then I'm going to go ahead and double crochet all the way over to the next stitch marker. And now at this next stitch marker, I'm going to remove the marker, and now into that little chain 1 section, I'm going to place a double crochet, and then chain 1, and then place another double crochet into that exact same section, like so. And then I'm going to double crochet all the way to the end of the row. So now here at the end of the row, I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch right into that first stitch there of the row, which is either a double or a single crochet. And then we can just repeat that same process. So again, chain 2, double crochet, or stacked single crochet. So single crochet, and then go right back down and single crochet into the stitch we just made, like so. And then you're just going to repeat that exact same process that I just demonstrated in the last 2 rows. So just double crochet up until you reach each stitch marker or each of the increase points, whether you have them marked or not. So I'm just going to double crochet up until I reach that very first increase section, which you can clearly see here because it has those 2 double crochets and that little chain 1. So now into this section I'm going to do another increase. So I'm going to double crochet, chain 1, double crochet to create another increase. And then I'm going to double crochet right over to the next section and do that exact same thing. And you're going to repeat that all the way around for several more rows. I do recommend trying this on every 2 to 4 rows because this does work up quite quickly. So just every couple rows, try this on, make sure you like the length of it, and just continue doing the same process of just double crocheting in a round with the increases on each of the 4 increase spots that we've already marked around the collar. So I'm going to go ahead and do a couple rows here, and I'll see you once I'm done with that. Okay, so I've now completed 18 rows here of the double crochet, and when you're measuring this to see if you like the way it fits, you're just going to focus on the front part of the sweater. So as you can see here in the back, it is definitely much too short, and that's okay. I'm not worrying about the back, I'm just worried about the front, and I sort of pulled the front of the sweater down until I liked the way the neckline sat on my neck here. So right where it is here, I think this looks really flattering, and then the rest of the sweater should fit at the length where the bottom here of the sweater, these little corners, fit comfortably right under your arm. So right here, if I kind of pull it down right under my arm, this will then become a sleeve, and this will then become a sleeve. Keep going until this is long enough that it comfortably sits right under your arms, leaving a nice open space here for the sleeves on both sides. And now that I'm happy with the length of the sweater here, I'm going to go ahead and cast off. So I'm just going to chain 1, like so, and then cut my yarn. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail when I cut my yarn, that way I have that loose end to weave in. I'm just going to pull my hook and then tug that yarn, locking it in place. And now we're going to be adding a little bit more to the back of the sweater, because if you remember when we first tried it on, we sort of focused on the front, and so the back is going to be shorter than the front. So when we wore it, it was more like this. And so we need to build up the back portion here of the sweater just a little bit, so that way it's all evened out. So I am making sure that I have the back of the sweater face up. So right where we have this seam along the back, that should be face up. And now I'm going right over to the right corner here, where you can see we have this little increase section here where we have those double crochets and that little chain section. So I'm going to insert my hook right under that little chain section there on the right corner at the back of the sweater, and then I'm going to get my yarn and I'm going to pull this yarn through and then chain 1 to lock it in place. And then you can either chain 2 or complete the stacked single crochets. So right in this little chain section, I'm doing stacked single crochets like so. And now we're just going to place a double crochet into every single stitch all the way over until we reach that next increase portion. So we're going all the way across the back of the sweater here over to the next little chain section here. And so I'm just going to be placing a double crochet into every single one of those stitches along the back of the sweater here. So I have now placed a double crochet into every single stitch along here over to this next little increase section. And now right into this little section here, right under that chain section, I'm going to insert my hook and place one last double crochet right under that chain there. And now we're going to go ahead and turn our work. And now you can begin this next row by either chaining 2 or doing a stacked single crochet like so. And then we're just going to repeat this exact same process where I'm placing 1 double crochet into every single stitch, and I'm just going along the back here. So I'm going into all of these double crochets that we just placed. So I'm going to go all the way from this corner to this corner and then turn my work and then repeat that again. And you just want to complete as many rows of double crochet as you need until the back of the sweater here lines up perfectly with the front of the sweater when you try this on. So I went ahead and added 5 rows of double crochet to the back of the sweater, and now you can see that when I sort of lay the sweater out where the collar is exactly where I want it to be, that the back of the sweater is now in line with the front of the sweater where it wasn't before. So when you stand like this, you can see that the front here, the corner of the front, is the same distance down as the corner at the back here. So you just want to keep adding these rows to the back of the sweater until it lines up like this. So now that we have the perfect fit for the sweater all the way around, now we're going to decide how wide we want the sleeves to be and how big we want the sweater to be. So this step is really going to just depend on what size fits you most comfortably and also how oversized you want the sweater to be. So from here, we have the front corner at the bottom of the sleeve and then the back corner at the bottom of the sleeve, and you're going to kind of pull these together. And so for myself here, they do touch together quite comfortably, and this alone could just be a really comfortable sleeve. But in some cases, you may have a little bit of a gap. You may need some extra crochet in between. So if these two sides don't quite touch under your arm, that's okay, because we're going to add extra crochet to the bottom. But if they do touch comfortably and you're happy with this fit, then you don't need to add any extra crochet. Basically, just take a second to evaluate whether or not you need extra crochet under each sleeve, extra space here. And if you do need extra space, kind of estimate and figure out how much extra space you will need. So once you have tried this on and then decide whether or not you want extra fabric or space below the arms, we can then create that space by making a chain. So you're going to chain the exact distance that you want the space to be beneath the arms. So I'll just chain 5 here for reference. And you're just going to chain whatever space or distance that you want to cover. And then we're going to go right to the front of the sweater here, where you can see we have that little chain section where we did that increase at the very bottom corner of the sleeve. You're going to insert your hook right into that section and then slip stitch like so. So now you're bringing that little chain section over to the other side and creating this perfect circle here that we can start creating our sleeve off of. And so as you can see here, we have that little chain section at the bottom. So now as you can see here, we have this perfect circle, which is going to be the sleeve, and it's secured here at the bottom with this little extra chain section, which is the perfect amount of extra fabric that you need for the sweater to be comfortable. But in my case, I've decided I'm actually not going to have any extra fabric because I want a slim fitting sweater here. So I'm just going to start off like so, and I will not be chaining anything. Instead, I'm just going to jump right over to that same little increase or chain section at the front of the sleeve, and I'm just going to slip stitch like so, therefore bringing both corners of the sweater together and still creating that perfect sleeve just without any of the extra fabric below. So now if you did add any chains to the bottom of the sleeve here, as I demonstrated, you want to go ahead and cast off and then cast back on right in the center of that chain that you made. That way when you're working in a round, the seam that you're going to create will be at the very bottom of your sleeve. So if you have a chain section here, quickly cast off your work and then cast back on right in the center of the chain. And now we're going to go ahead and get started on working on the sleeve. So right here, I'm going to start with either a stacked single crochet or a chain 2, and then if you're casting on, you do the same thing for wherever you casted on from, like so. And now I'm just going to place a double crochet into every single stitch all the way around this entire circle. And again, if you have that chain section at the bottom, you start in the center of the chain and then place a double crochet into all the chain stitches as well as the stitches here around the sleeve. And so I'm just placing a double crochet into every single stitch all the way around this entire opening here that we created for the sleeve. And then right here where we added these extra rows at the back of the sweater, it might be a little bit confusing because now we're working into the side of a double crochet instead of right into the actual stitch. But just go right under the actual post of the double crochet there and still place your double crochet stitch. So instead of working into the top of a stitch, we're now working right under the post, like so. And then again, if you have a chain section down here at the bottom of the sleeve, you're going to place a double crochet into each of those chain stitches up until you reach that first stacked single crochet or chain 2. And then we're going to slip stitch right into that first stitch like so. And then continue again either by chaining 2 or completing another stacked single crochet. Like so, and then we are just going to do that exact same thing again. So I'm just placing a double crochet into every single stitch all the way around, and you're just going to repeat this exact same process up until the sleeve reaches the bottom of your wrist or whatever length you want the sleeve to be. So just continue working it around here. You can see we are already building up the length of the sleeve with that first row of double crochet we just completed, and it really is that simple. You're just going to keep placing double crochet into every single stitch, slip stitching at the end of the row here, chaining 2 or doing a stacked single crochet, and then continuing with another row, and just keep on doing that until the sleeve is the length that you want. I just finished crocheting 30 rows of double crochet here to get the sleeve down to the bottom of my wrist, and now we're going to do the exact same thing to the other side to make the other sleeve. So then after completing that sleeve, I'm going to go ahead and cast off. So I'm cutting my yarn, leaving a little bit of a tail there. I'm going to pull my hook and then pull the yarn, therefore locking it in place. So that is the first sleeve completed, and now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side here. So here we are already at the back of the sweater. I've got the back seam here face up. So I'm going to insert my hook right into that little stitch here at the end. So right into this last stitch on the back right corner. And then I'm going to bring my yarn through like so, and I'm chaining one to lock it in place. And now when we were attaching the first sleeve, if you did do a chain section, if you chained a certain amount to place underneath the sleeve, you want to go ahead and chain that exact same amount now. So then once you have completed that chain, or once you are ready to now connect the sleeves, you're going to go right over to the front of the sweater here, where we have this little increase section. We have those double crochets and that little chain section. I'm going to insert my hook right under that chain section there, and I'm going to slip stitch like so. And now, just like on the other sleeve, if you did happen to make a chain here underneath the sleeve, you want to now cast off and then cast back on right in the center of the chain. That way, whenever you complete a row and you slip stitch, the seam that is created from slip stitching is perfectly underneath your arm or at the bottom of the sleeve. But because I do not have a chain, I'm just going to go ahead and start going along like normal. So right into this first stitch here, I'm going to place a stacked single crochet, or you can chain two, whatever method you want to use. And then I'm just going to double crochet into every single stitch all the way around this entire opening. And then again, if you have a little chain section at the bottom of the sleeve, make sure you are placing one double crochet stitch into every single one of those chain stitches that you made. And then right here at the end of the row where I have those stacked single crochets where we started the row, I'm going to go ahead and slip stitch. And then I'm going to start up on the next row by placing stacked single crochets into that same exact stitch. Or you can just chain two and then double crocheting again into every single stitch all the way around. So just like we did on the other sleeve, I'm just going to be working in a round here, placing a double crochet into every single stitch all the way around the opening of the sleeve, and I'm just going to keep on going until I have the same number of rows on this side as I did on the other side. So I've now crocheted the same number of double crochet rows here on this sleeve as I did with the first sleeve, so I'm going to go ahead and just cast off quickly like so, and I'm just pulling that yarn, locking it in place. And so now we have the basic shape of the sweater fully completed. As you can see here, we have the top of the sweater completed and then both of the sleeves. So now all we're going to do is focus on bringing the length of the sweater down, which is such an easy thing to do. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my work here. So we have the back of the sweater face up. And now here we have that seam along the back of the sweater. I'm going to follow that seam down. I'm going to insert my hook kind of into a stitch that lines up with that seam. It doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to be the exact same stitch, but you do want it to just kind of line up, so that way as we create the rest of the sweater, we still have that same seam in the same location here. So now I'm going to grab my yarn and I'm just going to pull it right through that stitch like so, and now you can either chain two or place stacked single crochets. And then you are just going to begin double crocheting. So it's super simple. It's just like we did with the sleeves. You're simply going to work in a round, just placing one double crochet into every single stitch, and you're just going to go all the way around the entire body of the sweater here. So this whole opening, you're going to go into every one of those stitches. And when you get below the arm here, if you have a chain section, make sure that you do place a double crochet into each of those chain stitches as well. So I'm just going to work my way all the way around, double crocheting into every single stitch here around the opening at the bottom of the sweater. So I've now double crocheted all the way around here, and I'm at the very start of the row where we did those little stacked single crochets, and I'm just going to slip stitch right into that first stitch there at the start of the row like so, and then repeat that same process. So again, I'm going to do another stacked single crochet, or you can chain two. I'm just going to start placing a double crochet into every single stitch all the way around. So super simple now. You're just going to continue doing rows, working in a round of just double crochet, and just keep on adding rows until the sweater is the length that you want. And so I'm just going to go ahead and add several more rows until the sweater is down to my waistline, and then I'll see you again to add the design to the front of the sweater. So here's what the sweater is looking like now. I have done enough rows to bring the bottom of the sweater down to the point that I want. I then and wove in all of the loose ends, and I also steamed the sweater. Here is the finished sweater, and it looks absolutely adorable. You are more than welcome to just stop here. You now have a perfectly completed top-down crochet sweater. But if you wanted to add that extra little design to the front of the sweater, as I showed you in the beginning of this video, I will be using the remainder of this tutorial to now demonstrate exactly how to add that design. So what we're going to do now is just figure out sort of where we want that design to be on the sweater. So we're going to be making like a box across the front of the sweater and then adding the design inside of the box. So I'm using bobby pins. You can use a stitch marker, or really anything you have on hand, to just sort of roughly mark where I want this box to be. So I'm marking each corner. So I want it to go from like here to here. So I'm going to mark each of these spots here. And don't worry about making it perfectly even yet. Right now you're just estimating generally where you want it, and then later we will make sure that it's all evened out before we actually add the design. So I'm going to mark the bottom corners as well. And once you have all 4 corners of your design roughly marked, you can then take off the sweater and go back to your workstation, where we will then more accurately measure the design and then start adding the design to the front of the sweater. So now I am laying my sweater out flat, and now you can see here where I have the bobby pins where I marked the corners for the square or the rectangle we're putting across the front of the sweater. And I'm just going to now take a second to make sure it's all evenly lined up. So I'm first making sure that the bobby pins are on the same height. So I'm making sure they're on the exact same row across, like so. They're the same number of stitches away from this little line here that indicates the start of the sleeve. So I'm first going to count from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So here we have 6 stitches away from the sleeve is this first bobby pin, and then on this side is another 6 stitches. So these are perfectly lined up, and then I'm going to go down and sort of do the same thing down here, where I'm going to make sure that they're on the exact same row. So if I follow along this row, both bobby pins are in the exact same row here, and then I'm going to make sure that they're the same distance away from this top bobby pin. So I'm just running my finger all the way down this row to make sure that these are in the correct space. So I'm going to move this bobby pin over 1 stitch, like so, and then again I'm going over to the other side, and I'm just going to follow along here. So I'm going to just bring my finger down along this line, like so. And so this bobby pin needs to move a couple stitches over here. So there are exactly 17 stitches between these 2 bobby pins and 17 stitches between these 2 bobby pins. So this is now perfectly lined up, and we have each corner of our square marked. So now I'm going to go ahead and begin surface crocheting. So I will be surface crocheting with this yellow yarn here, which is weight 4 yarn, which is the exact same weight of yarn that we made the sweater out of. And so what I'm going to do is I have my yarn here, and I'm already holding it like I'm about to cast on. And I'm going to take this hand that has the yarn, and I'm going to put it underneath the sweater. So I have the yarn now underneath the sweater, and now right into this stitch that we have marked, I'm going to just remove that bobby pin. I'm going to insert my hook right into that double crochet, and then I'm going to, if you can see underneath here, I'm going to pick up the yarn that I have that I'm holding underneath my sweater. So I'm holding that yarn right under my sweater, that way I can just pick it up and pull it right through that stitch, like so. And now I'm still holding on to that yarn underneath the sweater, and I'm just going to go right over to the next double crochet here, and I'm inserting my hook into the actual post of the double crochet, so right into the center of that double crochet post. And I'm just going to pick up some more yarn and then pull it through the loop on my hook, therefore completing a slip stitch. So again, let me show you a little bit slower. So I'm going into the next stitch, and I'm inserting my hook right into the entire post of that double crochet stitch. So I've now inserted my hook, and now underneath here I have my yarn that I'm just holding on to. So while my hook is underneath, I am picking up that yarn and scooping it up and pulling it up through the project, like so. And then while I have that yarn on my hook, I'm going to pull it through the loop that's on my hook, therefore completing a slip stitch. And there you can see we already have 2 stitches of surface crochet completed. So I'm going to go into the next stitch. Again, I'm inserting my hook into just that sort of post of the double crochet. And now underneath that project here where I'm holding the yarn, I'm going to pick it up with my hook and then pull it right through, and also pull it through the loop on my hook. So there's another stitch of surface crochet, and I'm just working my way all the way down until I reach the next bobby pin. So I'm doing the first row here, or the bottom of the square. And then here we have that next bobby pin or stitch marker to mark the next corner of the square. So I'm going to remove that stitch marker and then place one last surface crochet stitch right into that marked stitch. So now you can see here that we have the bottom of that square or rectangle completed and drawn out with the surface crochet. This is what it looks like in the back or the inside of the sweater. And now we're going to work our way up from this corner all the way up to the bobby pin that marks the top corner of that square. So because we're working up, we are working into the height of the double crochet instead of across. So each double crochet is made up of 2 single crochet in height. So therefore, because our surface crochet is the height of a single crochet, we are going to be placing 2 surface crochet stitches into each double crochet stitch as we work our way up. So as you can see here, each double crochet in the height here has sort of a bottom of the stitch and a top to the stitch. So we are going to be surface crocheting into both the bottom and the top. So I'm inserting my hook right into sort of the bottom of that post for the double crochet. And then again, I'm going down below my piece and I'm finding that yarn wherever I have it. There we go. And I'm picking up the yarn that I'm holding beneath my sweater and slip stitching like so. And now we're going to still insert our hook right into the top. So this was the bottom of the double crochet. And now you see if you go all the way up, there's sort of a top to the double crochet. So I'm inserting my hook right into the top there and then slip stitching. So therefore each double crochet gets 2 surface crochet stitches like so. So going into this next double crochet here, I'm going to insert my hook right into the bottom of the stitch and then scoop up some yarn like so and slip stitch. And now I'm going into the top part of that stitch, picking up some of that yarn that I'm holding beneath my project and slip stitching like so. So here we now have 4 surface crochet stitches placed on top of 2 double crochet stitches. And as you're working your way up, the most important thing with when you're working up the double crochet is to make sure that you are inserting your hook into the double crochet stitches that are all lined up perfectly, because it can be really easy to accidentally go into a neighboring double crochet stitch and then your line will be kind of wobbly, which you don't want. So make sure that every time you go into the next double crochet stitch that it is perfectly in line with the row of double crochet that will bring you straight to this marker here. And so now I'm just slip stitching right into the stitch here that we have marked with that stitch marker like so. So I have now surface crocheted all the way up to the top corner of the square. So now I'm going to rotate my work, and now we're basically doing that exact same thing, only we're working from this side to this little bobby pin or stitch marker here to make the top of the square. Because we're working this way, I am placing only 1 surface crochet stitch into every double crochet because we are working the short way. It's only when we're working the long way, where we're working into the height of the double crochet, that I then place 2 stitches in each double crochet. And now we're just going to do that very final row to complete the square. So I'm turning my work again. So now I'm working down from this top corner of the square or rectangle to that very bottom corner where we started. So just like when we worked our way up, I'm going to place 2 stitches of surface crochet into every one of the double crochets. I have now slip stitched all the way around from the very start here and created this entire rectangle. So now I'm going to go ahead and cast off. And the way I cast off here is I go underneath my project where I have that yarn. This here is my tail where I started, and then this is the yarn that we currently are working with. And I just cut my yarn, leaving a little bit of a tail. So I have some extra yarn there, and I cut my yarn, and then I pull my hook like so and tug on that yarn to lock it in place. And now currently we have the loose end on the front of the sweater, which we don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my hook here, and I'm going to place it underneath the sweater like so. And I'm going to insert my hook right in between that first surface crochet stitch that we made right there. So we have both sides of the stitch on either side of my hook. I'm then going to scoop up this loose tail, and I'm just going to pull it through like so. So here is that completed rectangle, and now inside of this rectangle you could do whatever design that you want. I am just going to be using these orange yarns and maybe some more of that yellow to just make sort of a swirly pattern inside of the square. So I'm going to be doing the exact same method I just demonstrated with that surface crochet, only instead of following an exact line, I'm just going to kind of go wherever I want all over inside of the square, making that sort of swirly pattern. And you can make whatever pattern or design you want inside of the square here. So I'm going to go ahead and complete that, and then I'll show you what it looks like once it's done. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you liked the way your sweater turned out. If you have any questions throughout this video, just feel free to put those in the comments down below, and I will do my very best to get back to you on that. If you wanted to show me your finished sweater, I would love to see it. You can share it with me over on Instagram, which I will have up here on the screen, or I will have it linked in the description down below. And it will just absolutely make my day to see this sweater design come to life. I always love it when you guys send me pictures of your finished crochet designs. So I look forward to hearing from you either on Instagram or in the comments down below, and I will see you very soon with another crochet video. Until then, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. Goodbye.